A sneak peek of what's coming up next.
Yeah, systemic ableism. So
Yes.
one of the biggest things that really upset me was certain work visas you cannot get, and these are from so-called progressive countries such as New Zealand and Australia. There's a high chance you could be turned down and denied. So you'd have to lie on your application in order to apply for a work visa over there.
I got to start. You're right. All right. Welcome to On the Spectrum podcast. My name is Nick.
I'm Steven.
Every episode, huh? Every episode. All right. So, as we always do at the beginning of every episode, me and Steve do not presume to be experts in anything whatsoever. We're just two human beings who happen to be on the spectrum, and this is our journey. We're kind of experiencing and learning as we go. So we may say some things that you like, you dislike, you argue with, whatnot. Great, let us know. We might say some things that are considered socially inappropriate, especially to our own community, but that's because we're learning just like everybody else is. So if you find something that we say offensive, or if you like something we say, put a comment in any of the social media you can possibly do. But here's the cool thing, and I'm going to pass this over to Steve because this is actually Steve's guest. So I'm going to have Steve do the intro.
Oh, all right. I wasn't prepared for this, but it's fine. Today we're speaking to Jamal. And it's a gentleman that I met on TikTok. We did a few lives together, and I thought he had a lot of interesting life experience and a lot of interesting things to say. And I thought he would be a great guest, so I wanted to talk to him and share the conversation with everybody.
Hi, Jamal. How are you?
Hello. I just want to say, thank you, and please do subscribe to these guys' podcasts. I've always wanted to do a podcast. We need to support other autistic businesses and entrepreneurs. So, please do subscribe to these guys.
Thank you so much. I do want to point out that we did, as Steve said, that we did meet Jamal on TikTok. Jamal, what's your handle on TikTok if people want to find you?
Quote Samurai, but with triple I's at the end. Or Ghost Tiger. It's either that. It's probably Ghost Tiger now because I changed the handle. So
it says Ghost Tiger when I saw you.
Yeah, that's what I know you by too. But that's all right.
What I was calling you Ghost Tiger until I found out your real name. So it's like Ghost Tiger, that guy.
Yeah, so everybody look up either one of those two names. But Jamal's got some cool content out there. Check it out on not Facebook, on TikTok. God, I am such an old man. All right. So anyway, moving forward.
Jamal, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Just people who don't know you.
Yeah. I'm 25 years old. I am an amateur kickboxer and a current bouncer / doorman for a nightclub.
Awesome.
And how did you get into kickboxing?
That's a good question. It goes fighting in my family goes as far back as my great grandfather, who was West Indian. He was in the British Navy, and back then when you was black you couldn't get certain jobs, so he wanted to make some decent money, so he went as a boxer. And then it goes as far back as my grandfather, and then my dad was a black belt in Kyokushin full contact karate, and my mum did Muay Thai.
Oh wow,
so
cool.
I'm from a generation, if your parents do a hobby, you have to do it. But I didn't fully dedicate myself to it until I was, I would say, 19. I did Shotokan karate. And then for my coach, when I was 21 or 22, Kevin Henry Armstrong, or Kevin Morris, believes in me and said, you have potential, please come and train with me. And I'm 25 now, and I've been training 6 days a week with him ever since, hoping to go pro one day.
Wow.
So you were born to be a fighter, pretty much.
Yeah, huh?
So it runs in your family.
It's in my DNA, it's in my culture.
There you go. 6 days a week?
But I enjoy that. It's part of my lifestyle. You said you're from the army, so it's part of you. Well, training is part of my routine. Because I've been through a lot and things I can't even speak of online, and therapy, medication, it doesn't work on me. The only thing that works is putting the gloves on, hitting the bag, sparring. That's what makes me happy. I could give up video games, I could give up music, I could be be alone for the rest of my life. But me not training.
Yeah.
No, I'm only surprised, and you're saying 6 days a week, and I think it's great that you love something so much that you want to dedicate that much time. It's just I'm not a big fan of working out, and that sounds like a whole lot of effort. So like 6 days a week doing anything straight, like to me, is like a lot of effort. I'm not really the most motivated human being ever.
It's not effort to me. It's right. Something I love.
Yeah,
I don't know. I enjoy. I like being healthy. I like exercising.
And I like chili dogs. So
alone. So yeah,
I'm just goofing off. Sorry.
Yeah, and you had said too when we did the live. I mean, you mentioned that it's therapeutic for you, and it's a way for you to prevent having like meltdowns and things like that. You don't really get too overwhelmed because you're able to take out a lot of the your frustrations.
It's related. How I would explain, it's like a balloon. Like you fill it up, you let it burst, or you release it. Right. So that's my.
Yeah, you have a way of channeling those kind of feelings and all of that, right? You have a way to direct that energy, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little while, I was doing karate, but I was only doing it twice a week. But I have touch sensory issues. So, like, in that class, I had to tell the instructor before I started the class that any time that you need me to touch somebody or somebody touch me, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And
I do. It's in my head, though. Like, it's weird when I'm not in the gym. I don't like people really touching me without my permission because I flinch and I've accidentally given people black eyes and stuff, and I'll tell them like, don't toy fight with me.
Right.
If you're gonna touch me, tell me don't sneak up around me. But when I'm in the gym, it's like I switch.
Oh.
Because how are you gonna do things like that? It's kind of a way of trust.
Right. I avoided sparring.
Sensory issues, it's a blessing as well because I've got good reflexes. Like you can't hit me, like I don't get hit.
But it's kind of like when we talked to Temple before. She was talking about being able to have control over it, and maybe because in your situation you have control over the touching because you're engaged in sparring or
right. It's your choice to put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I guess that's 100% why the art of self-control. Like I'm the man. Like he can only hit me if I let him. Like it makes me feel in control. So yeah, you could say that. And I'm terrible when it comes to team sports because I'm not in control. Like, and I've done other sports in my life. Yeah. I remember because I'm 6'4". Like I remember in high school. I'm now, but I wasn't always. I'm a late bloomer in puberty. Like so, I wasn't always tall, but I was fairly tall in high school, and I remember playing basketball. But I struggled with that, like doing as a team. I was a defense, and I got kicked off the team for elbowing a guy in the face. I played cricket, which is a British version of baseball, and I got kicked off the team for hitting the guy with a cricket bat for calling me the N-word.
Wow. I think he deserved that. I don't think
no, it wasn't the N-word. It was another racial slur, but
still deserved. A bat to the head is deserving. Yeah, you deserve a bat in the head for racial slurs.
And I think I played soccer and accidental kicked a guy with the boot in the face. Like, you see, when you get into a fight, well, at least in the mid-2000s in school, like, they have what you call, recently, when I first went to high school, a new policy, which is a zero violence tolerance. So, like, you could easily get expelled, suspended.
They had something like that when I was in school as well. I got suspended a few times, but I never got expelled. But I got into quite a few fights as well. I got into a lot of trouble.
I should have showed up to high school if I wanted to get kicked out.
So basically, non-contact sports are not made for me. If I'm playing in a team,
right? So you're obviously from the UK. I don't know if we mentioned that already or not.
Yes, I'm from Manchester, England, Bronx of Britain. The best way to describe Manchester, I always tell Americans, is the movie, Spike Lee's famous movie, Do the Right Thing.
Oh, okay,
it's a British parody of that. Like, literally, we have our own version of a person like in Sal's Pizza, the mayor, the Chinese clerk, whatever. Like, yeah, it's a melting pot because it's a miniature version of London, but because we're more cultured, and it's less fast paced. Like everybody will know everyone, and and it's more interaction and there's more conflict.
There's more conflict in Manchester.
Yeah, in Manchester, England. But that's what makes it fun, because there's a little bit of spice to it. It's not generic.
Yeah. What's interesting is for a few years I lived in Manchester, Connecticut. So I think it's interesting. You're from Manchester and I'm from Manchester. Just two very different Manchesters.
you see, Britain has colonized those countries, and so they just renamed everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very handy to leave from Plymouth and land in Plymouth.
Yes, it's very handy to leave and arrive in Plymouth. Yeah. Oh crap! I had a question and I lost it completely. Steve,
get back onto that.
Well, I know you wanted to talk about ableism.
Yes.
Yeah, systemic ableism. So one of the biggest things that really, really upset me was certain work visas you cannot get, and these are from so-called progressive countries such as New Zealand and Australia. If let's say you're applying for a work visa over there, there's a high chance you could be turned down and denied. So I've realized when I saw it was a TikTok video and I Googled it, and it's true. So you'd have to lie on your application in order to apply for a work visa over there.
What's the justification for it? Like, what's their reasoning?
Yeah.
They'll just find legal loopholes, like, what is it now? It was something to do with the medical insurance, or the support. Like it's a huge budget, so you'd have to provide this and that. I don't know the exact words in detail, but it has something to do with the support needs.
So it's basically it sounds like what you're saying. Their justification is, well, we don't want you to be a potential burden on our system.
Yeah,
but not also that they don't want to get sued,
right,
for ableism, legally.
So if they take you in, it might be a not a threat, but it's like a
high maintenance cost.
Yeah, it's like if you were to have insurance for certain things, right? It's a liability, because if I hire you, if I don't meet your accommodations as a problem, then they look at it as a liability. Not saying that we are a liability, but that's how they view it.
Right. And actually, years ago, my dad used to travel to New Zealand, and he was going to apply for to work there, to live there, and apply for a work visa. And they actually denied him because his work was, at the time, he was a professional wood turner. And he said that he got denied because there was far too many people in New Zealand who were wood turners, who were craft workers, right? And so he got denied because, they didn't want to have just one more person doing that. And obviously, he was a white guy, so he didn't look at it from a context of other things. And he also has never been diagnosed with anything that would inhibit him in that way. But he looked at it in the sense of their society is just looking after themselves. And I guess in a way, that's kind of what it is. If you don't hold a purpose for the society, they're not going to let you into work there any more than just visit. But there's a whole lot of levels to that too, though, because there's a whole lot of reasons they could turn you down for a whole lot of shit that ain't right. I mean, there's a whole lot of that. They could. I'm not saying they necessarily do for other reasons, but they could deny you for a whole lot of things.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry to throw it out there like that, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. And in the UK, you legally cannot join the armed forces, which is the British version of the military. You can't join the fire department / fire service. You can't join the police force. And I think there's more, if I probably Googled, more high jobs or that are part of the system of government that I probably couldn't get.
The United States is the same way. You can't be a police officer, a fireman. You can't join the service. You can't. You cannot work for any of the Homeland Security stuff, FBI, CIA, DEA. You can't work for anybody who is openly allowed to carry a gun. You can't do any of that if you're diagnosed with a mental health issue or autism.
Is there anything you think that's maybe unique to the UK that's different than maybe say here in America? As far as limitations.
Definitely. You see, and I've gotten myself in a lot of hot water for the past, I'd say, year. Self-diagnosed is not really a big a thing in the UK because of our free healthcare. That's one thing that we have better in the UK that you don't have in the US.
Valid. Yeah.
Healthcare. So diagnosis is free. So most people who are autistic are diagnosed like professionally. So for me, when I first had a self-diagnosis, I'm like, what is this, a joke?
Yeah.
I found it offensive.
Well, I can see why based on that context. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't gone through what I've gone through. Like, how dare you self-diagnose yourself when I legally can't get certain jobs and you can?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird in the U.S. because a lot of people go undiagnosed. Because either it's not
costs so damn much.
Well, it's not even just the cost, but just a lot of people don't, especially depending on, like if somebody has a lot more signs, like depending on how they present, they might get caught. But a lot of people will just go under the radar and they don't get caught. They write it off as something else.
Yeah,
and then if you don't have the right insurance, you need to find specific doctors to do it. If you're older, there's not a lot of people who are qualified to diagnose adults.
That's right.
So
like you could live in an area your entire life and not have a diagnostician who can diagnose autism within 200 miles of you, or even more. Plus, some people are reporting to me that it's like $4,000 or $5,000 just to get diagnosed. Like, I mean, honest to God, I don't know if I could afford that damn much.
That's why self-diagnosis is probably a bigger thing over here than it is over there.
Yeah, and of course now I have empathy for them and stuff, but you know, I was a lot a lot younger. I'm 25 now, but I don't think I fully matured until I was 24. So,
well, that's part of the problem I had with TikTok.
I don't think he's fully matured.
I was going through one of the I was watching an autistic creator on one of their lives before I did the live that I did when you were there. And they were talking about self-diagnosis, but there were people who kind of had your opinion who were talking, and they were just instantly banning anybody who had the opinion that you used to have. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't you ask them why they think that way?
Right.
Or ask them where they're coming from instead of just blocking them. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, because how are you going to, maybe they don't know, maybe there's some reason why they feel, you don't know anything. You just block them. Then how are you going to, how are you going to like change anything? Or
because they don't actually want to change anything.
About TikTok, it's one of them. Like I've lost like so many accounts when I first got into it, because I'm the sort of person that unless you explain everything to me, I'm going to test the waters. Like, I remember, this is one of my favorite autistic memories for when I was a child. It was Christmas time, right? I was with my aunt and uncle who celebrate Christmas. And that's what it was. It was a snowy day. Some random reason out of my mind, I decided to open the door. And I literally said, I'm going to open the door. And they were like, don't open the door. I said, I'm going to open it. And it was like, I don't know if they were going too fast or not, but I opened it and it was like snow was getting in, and I pulled it, and they stopped the car and they said, why did you do that? And I said, oh, because I felt like, they said, don't you know that you could crash the car? And I said, no, you should have told me that it was dangerous and we would have been in danger. I would have done it. Like, you always had to tell me why.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I was always the why kid.
Yeah, I was too. And people usually thought it was annoying.
What'd you say, Jamal?
I was never, ever a bad kid, but I was always asking why, always like saying what's on my mind. And
to me, I think I could be often perceived as defiant, because if people wanted me to do something, I had a hard time complying with what they wanted me to do unless they could articulate to me why. So if you just said, well, because I said so, I'm like, that's not good enough for me. I'm just going to do it anyway.
Perceived as defiant.
I was defiant. But it was because, if they said, well, you can't do that, or like, oh, you can't go outside and play right now. Why not? Because I said so. All right, well, I'm going out anyway. Because you didn't give me a good reason.
Yeah, that because you said so, so what? Give me an actual reason. Well, because it's a blizzard. Well, that's valid. All right, I'll stay home.
But one thing I wanted to ask you about. So I've spoke to you before. I've met you, and I know a little bit more about you than people who are probably listening, or even maybe Nick.
I know this much out of the totality of your existence.
I remember you talking about like how your background has affected like your experience being autistic. as far as your ethnic background and your religious background and your family. So I was wondering if you could talk a little about that, because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I am very, very rare from what I've seen online. Like most people who I see on the online community who are autistic and high function, they're usually white. I'm not racist, by the way. I'm just explaining the race. Like,
sorry, I'm just goofing off when I make that expression, because you're right.
Yeah, someone who is a person of color and who is religious and mixed race. Like, I'm half. My mother's side is Nigerian and she's a tad bit West Indian, but it's mostly Nigerian culture. She's African, stereotypical African mother, and my father is a Yemeni, but he's firstborn generation here, so he grew up in a black neighborhood. So he's blackwashed Arab. Like, Arabic is not his first language, even though he can speak it fluently. Okay. I can read Arabic, but I can't speak it 100% fluently, but I can pick up a word here and there.
Yeah.
But my culture is, I'd say, Nigerian, plus my parents were busy working full time, and I grew up with my grandmother, who is a devout Pentecostal Nigerian Christian.
Okay.
And I'm a devout Sufi Muslim now.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, like, you're Muslim and your grandmother was Pentecostal.
Converted to Islam, and my dad was born Muslim. Yeah. Okay. Because he's Yemeni Arab.
But you had mentioned when we spoke on the live about kind of how where you grew up, how like autism was maybe not taken as seriously.
I think it was just a generational thing. Like, I remember my mum going. I think we was in the car on the way back from school. I think I was in kindergarten year, or I was either in kindergarten or just started first grade, and my mum was on the phone and said, "Oh, I think Jamal might have autism." I almost said the asp word because that's anti-Semitic. I almost said that word. But she basically said,
we said it a lot on the show, so we first few episodes we said that a lot because that's actually what I was diagnosed with.
And I was like, "Oh, burgers," and I'm like, because I was, backside burger, and I was like, "Oh, Mum, that's a dirty word. Like, we're not supposed to." Say, "No, it's a diagnosis." And I was like, "Oh," I was never really bothered about it until the systemic stuff, like. So I was like, okay, and it's like, is that why I keep getting in trouble? I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then I would say that was it. I've never really been bothered. That's just who I've always been.
Right. How old were you when you were diagnosed? I might have missed it if you just said it.
I was in kindergarten. I don't know the exact age, but I was either just finished kindergarten or no, definitely first grade, because I remember the classroom was different. Right. First grade. So relatively young.
Yeah, I mean, I was in my mid to late 30s, so I went most of my life not even having any idea, and it was probably about 6 years prior to that. I think it was 6 years. 6 years prior to that, I was diagnosed with bipolar. So, and prior to that, I just thought I was a weirdo. So
I kind of envy that because you've had more employment opportunities than me. You've had, done things that I'll never ever be able to do.
And I think because we're in two separate countries, that's true as well, in that regard. But like, I got fired from a lot of jobs, and I had a lot of issues at jobs, due to it and not knowing. I mean, there is, and I don't disagree with you. There was probably a lot of opportunities that I was given, especially like I went into the military. I wouldn't have, if I'd been diagnosed with autism and bipolar prior to the military, I wouldn't have been able to go. So yes, because I was undiagnosed with both of those, I was able to go to the military. But at the same time, being in the military, I had panic attacks, or at least what I thought was a panic attack, constantly, almost daily, because in the military, you have to stand extremely close to somebody. You have to touch up onto somebody. There's a lot of sound and a lot of people yelling. There's a lot of sensory input that I thought I was just having panic attacks. And then prior to even going to the military, like there was a ton of jobs I got fired from because like I didn't realize that it was part of a condition that was causing me to be so honest, that was causing me to say things that sounded rude to other people, that caused me to question some shit that I probably shouldn't have questioned shit, right?
And that is
and
probably
so there were
scary.
issues with it. What?
I know that probably must have been frustrating and quite scary. I can understand that. Like,
sure.
One of my fears, I've only been fired once, is getting fired.
Oh, that's a fear? Oh, it gets easier the more times it happens.
I think there's
it makes me. I don't know if it's because of my Nigerian household I've been, but I've always been brought up like to work hard, and me getting fired like feels like a failure. I remember the first time getting fired, I felt like crying and calling my mum up, and he was like, "Why'd you get fired?" And I'm like, "Oh, because of this and because of that." And I didn't realize at the time. Well, I figured it out now is because I'm wearing glasses. I'm cross-eyed. And I think that's part of my autism because I watch a documentary and while some people have double vision and you naturally do not have good hand and eye coordination, but majority of people, due to human adaptation, learn how to correct it. But because of the way my mind works, and I've realized a lot of people on the spectrum have terrible hand and eye coordination, I have double vision. And I wasn't prescribed my prescription until I was 19.
Okay.
My first job as an assistant chef, I struggled cutting things close up because I'm seeing two at the same time. And I don't want to chop my fingers off.
Right. So you had to go a lot slower, right?
Yeah. The food industry, it has to be quick. People want the food now.
Well, I will say this much. Like you said, you felt like crying when you got fired that first time. I avoided telling my mother for almost a year the first time I got fired because I was
living with her at
that scared. I was so scared to tell anybody I got fired because I felt the same way you did about working hard. You got to work hard. You got to keep a job. You got to be accepted and all that. After it happened,
you don't want to be a bum.
Yeah, you don't want to be a bum, and there's the whole like being masculine and all that shit.
There's something wrong with
for
you.
People and all that bullshit. Yeah. It wasn't until like 3 or 4 times that it happened, and it wasn't until I started to say no, I'm not like other people, and at that point I still didn't have a diagnosis, but I started to accept the fact, and I started to come to terms with the fact that I ain't like other people.
So I don't know what it's like to grow up with a diagnosis the way that Jamal did, but I'd say on the other side of it, I think there's pros and cons for both. But one of the downsides from not knowing is I had a lot of really horrible relationships with friendships and like girls that I dated or tried to date. There's a lot of things that just didn't work out, but I didn't understand why I was having issues. So I always blamed myself. And I felt like there was something wrong with me or that I was...
The internalization of it.
Yeah, I always blamed myself and I beat myself up and I used to get depressed because I didn't know that there was a reason why I was having all these social issues and why I just felt like there's something wrong with me. I can't fit in. I'm just a shitty person. No one likes me. I guess I'm just not likable. I didn't...
Yeah, I know. I had that before and after I was diagnosed. Self-hatred, it was a very, very big thing for me, especially even though in high school I went to a special needs high school, I still stood out from the autistic children or teens. I don't know if it was because I was one of the only Muslims or people of color in that school, but I remember one day someone telling me, "No one likes you, Jamal," and I'm like, okay, like of course I was crying on the inside, but I'm a man. Like back in my day, if you was seen as a male crying, you'd be seen as homosexual, and homophobia was very common back in my day. So of course I didn't cry, but
back in mine too.
Self-hatred. But I went to the toilet, and I tell people don't do this. Like your human life is sacred, your body is sacred. But I punched myself in the face like hard, like like that scene out of Rayman when he's going in the airport and he doesn't want to get on the plane. He's hitting himself on the head. I was doing that, but I was screaming like quietly, like, "You stupid piece of beep, beep, beep. Why can't you do anything right?"
And you're more than welcome to swear on the show.
If it wasn't for my religion, that self-harming is a big sin, and your body's a temple, and if you do unalive yourself, you will spend eternity in hell, I don't think I would be here. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm still quite religious, because there have been times when I'm feeling like, well, if I'm such a burden to society, maybe I'm doing them a favor of removing myself. And I tell people this: never ever harm yourself, never ever harm your body, because I believe all human life is sacred and you can help others.
And
yeah, absolutely.
This is one of the things that I get irritated with. Like, so I frequent, or I used to frequent, a lot of atheist circles or communities online that are maybe lean in that direction politically or spiritually. Like either they're atheist or they don't agree. But anyway, one of the problems I have with a lot of people who are atheists, usually people more on the left as far as politics wise, I don't like how they just openly crap on religion.
Oh, okay, that's where you're going with this.
But they fail to see some of the they only focus on the negatives. They focus only on negative things about religion. They don't focus on any of the positives.
Why,
and they don't see that it helps people.
It really does.
I've realized that a lot of them grew up, especially in America. It's different in people in America. They probably grew up in a religious household, and because to them they didn't experience the love of the Lord or whatever.
Right. It was more forced on them.
Was an authoritative thing, like you can't do this and you can't do that. Like, I'm very lucky, and this is why I thank my mum. She always showed me the love and why we would do this. But yeah, my dad was a lot like that. Like, God doesn't like this, God doesn't like that. Hell. Like, if I had a doll every single time growing up, he would explain hell, but he would never have explained me the scripture. Like, God doesn't like this, God doesn't like that.
But it also gives meaning to people's lives. Like, a lot of people benefit from it. It's much easier to go through life if you have something that you believe in.
Oh, absolutely. I would say believing in something higher than self, or believing in a God, gives you purpose in itself.
I'd say the most important thing about my faith is one of the things that keeps me going. As I say, I see God as a second parent, like the ultimate father figure for me. Like, the whole world could hate me and despise me, but God will always love me. And he has been there for me when I've been, depressed or whatever. Like, I've had spiritual experiences. I can't really speak on them. As a Muslim, you're not supposed to go into detail with that, but I haven't, like... It may be different for others, but, he's always been there for me. He's always showed love to me, the way I'm born. So, I'm always going to be in his good books as long as I stay on the straight path. So
there you go. So I got a question about your faith, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, please ask away. It's my job as a Muslim.
What does, because I'm mostly unfamiliar with your religion. I know a little bit, but I don't know enough where I could actually speak on it. What does Islam teach when it comes to mental health?
Oh, Islam is probably, from what I've learned, the most, when it comes to scripture, I'm not talking about the Muslim community, but in scripture, the most sympathetic to people with mental health. Like, there are scriptures like, if you do not know what you are doing is wrong or sinful, God will not punish you. If you've never ever heard of Islam or the message or understood it, you will not enter hell. Like, Islam only punishes you for the lifestyle you're living and if you know what you're doing is wrong.
Okay.
So,
wow, that's...
So, if, like, let's say you're bipolar, right, and you're having an episode, God's not going to punish you for that.
But once because you're having an episode.
Yeah, I know, but once you've, like, remained, in your sober state of mind,
right,
you're responsible again, and that's only when you have the maturity of an adult, or you have, like, started puberty. So so I'd say because I know what I'm doing, majority of the time I'd say I am responsible. But at the same time, because some things I do have a childlike mind, I believe God is more lenient to me. So, you have ADHD, Down syndrome, and all that. Those guys are probably going to heaven.
All right. So, like, based on...
God has a special place for people with mental health, I'd say, in Islam.
Oh, cool. I like that. I have a special place. That's kind of nice. that sounded flippant, and I hope, Jamal, you did not take that as me saying a flippant statement to it. I was just goofing. Shit, I fucked up my own thought process.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
So what do you think?
One thing I do want to say,
yes,
is in Islam we believe that God has created every single creation perfect in a way. So if you insult someone by the way they're born or their mental state at the way they're born, you are insulting the creator himself, because God willed for them that way. It's like you see a painting like Picasso, right? You may not like Picasso, but if you say it's a load of garbage, then you're insulting the painter. So of course there are some ableist Muslims, of course they are, but they are committing a major sin, and God will hold them accountable on the day of judgment for that. So on scripture, on blueprint, yeah, Islam is a very, very autistic and mental health friendly religion.
Right. And like, of course, there's bad practitioners of every religion. Of course, there are people who take things out of context in a religion and skew it to whatever they want it to.
Like all the Christians who don't actually follow the teachings of Christ.
Yes, that would be exactly what I'm bringing up. But I agree, and I think it's great that it's, if you insult the person or make fun of or put down somebody who has one of those mental health differences, then you're also insulting God. And I think that's a interesting way to kind of look at it. But let me ask the question on that. If I make fun of myself for my bipolar, would that mean I'm also insulting God?
It depends. Like if you're doing it in like a serious way, like self-hatred and like, you know, like, oh God, why did you make me this way, instead of like trying to like overcome the adversity,
right? Then
that is kind of sinful. But let's say if you're trying to just be in light-hearted the situation, like, oh, look at me, I'm bipolar,
right?
That's okay.
Okay,
because I think there's a difference between
is different in that regard,
purposely
right?
trying to be like mean or insulting versus making light of.
Okay,
like making,
well, I was just
like, say if you were to make a comedy sketch about it, no, that's not sinful.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's based on the intent of it in that regard.
Yeah, intention is actually, literally, there is a scripture that says the intention is worth more than the action. So let's say you get up early and you're ready to pray, but you somehow miss it or are not able to pray it. That is worth more that you wanted to do that and you intended to do that. So let's say your father's woken you up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like chuck cold water about you, like, right, you're praying, you make the prayer, but you don't want to do it. You hate praying, but you do it. You won't get as much reward.
Yeah, I've actually heard that before. I used to work with a gentleman who was an assistant house manager of a group home I worked at, who was a Muslim man who prayed 5 times a day and stuff. And he brought me to the mosque one day, just to kind of, we were on an outing for the house, and it was just me and him getting groceries, and he brought me to the mosque. And one of the things he talked about was, and me and him were having a conversation, because I'm a Christian, and we were talking about people who just call themselves stuff and people who actually believe, right? And he was like, he was talking about that intention piece of like, if you're doing it just for face value, just to do it, or if you're doing it because you truly have love and faith in what you're doing, which was fun. Like, he taught me a bunch of things. Like, I don't know if it's the same version as you, like, same denomination you practice or not. I don't know. I have no idea.
So what was this, in America?
Yeah, it was in America. Yeah.
It probably, I don't know. It probably would be different, but
I don't know. But there's so many different variations of every religion that, like, I don't know. Unless you go to the same temple, church, or mosque, I assume there's some variation.
True. But within Islam, not really that many variations, because we have certain scriptures that say you can't have an innovation of this because it totally kicks you out of the fold of Islam. But majority of people who I've realized who are on the different side, that's not the majority side of Islam, are usually in America and Australia. Especially if they're from a certain country that has that variation. It was like, did you know what race he was or where he was from?
I mean, he was born in the U.S. He was born in the U.S.
So you didn't know where his heritage was from?
No, I didn't ask that question.
Then I can't comment on that.
Yeah. I generally don't ask that question to people because, like, If they want to tell me where their ancestry is from, cool. If they want to tell me where they're from, all right.
Wow. That's another thing that's different in America. Yeah. No. In England, it's very, very common.
Oh, for somebody to just be like, where's your family from?
People will think that's rude over here.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah, especially in the Muslim community, because they want to know your background. It's not racist. It's just curiosity.
Yeah. Here, people get real uptight about that kind of shit. Like, no matter who you are, they're like, "Ooh, why are you asking what my ethnicity is? Why are you asking where my grandparents are from?" Like, I'm just asking. But, yeah, so I have a tendency to not ask that question very much.
So what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you have over there in the UK and, being autistic?
I would say social, this is even in my own family, social skills, how you can, without me trying, I can offend someone, like, or not make anyone happy. Like, as much as I love my family, there are times, and I wish I could turn back the clock, that I have caused a lot of issues. Like, of course, like, luckily, my mother has forgiven me, and she's like, look, I didn't know, like, you're a good boy, like, but there are times where I do feel guilt, like, or if I didn't do that, like I said, I didn't mature until I was 24, and I was very, very selfish and self-centered, like I said, because I didn't understand the issues of empathy and stuff. But recently, the most recent one is, and I didn't realize that my mum was like that. Last time I visited my mum, I think it was 3 days ago. The Willy Wonka movie, right? I was speaking to my sisters, and my sisters, I'm very, very glad. They're a blessing from God. They're the most precious thing to me, because I can be myself around, and I believe that some of them are on the spectrum, but they won't get diagnosed due to systemic ableism.
Right.
We spoke about the Wonka movie in detail, and the part that we didn't like was Hugh Grant, who's a famous actor playing the Oompa Loompa. Like, yeah, he should have been taken out of the movie. Like, he was just unnecessary. And then my mum was overhearing us. Oh, well, I actually kind of liked him. Like, he was amusing. And I'm like, really? He was annoying. I like CGI. And they said, was there anything you did like about the movie? Like, if you didn't like it, then why did you come? I wouldn't have gotten you a ticket. Do you know how much money I spent on that? And I'm like, sorry, Mum.
Oh, so she took it as a lack of appreciation or gratitude, the fact that she brought you to the movie.
Yeah, even though
you were just
giving a lot of things I did like about the movie, like I love the music and stuff. I'm just saying, like, it was just a movie review, and it's like, is there anything else negative you want to do? Like, you've said nothing but negative stuff today, and because I say what's on my mind, and I'm either very, very quiet if I know that I could, like, upset my mum. So, like, that's how I ended up getting my name Ghost, pale skin, and not saying anything. You're dead like a ghost. It can cause issues. And one of my, sometimes a nickname that she used to call me was Negative Ned, like, always being negative.
Negative Ned. Yeah. Yeah,
well, people focus on the negative.
I'm right with you, Jamal, because I used to hear that a lot. And if I remember the live correctly, you and Nova both said that the two of you pulled back from talking to people quite a lot because of that, and you guys didn't really give your opinion all that often because of being treated that way. When I heard that on the live, I really wanted to chime in and be like, I did the exact opposite of that shit, and not saying our approaches were right or wrong in any way. It's just I did the opposite of that. The more people told me to shut up, the more people said that no, I shouldn't talk. I shouldn't say things the way I say it. No, none of that. The more I did it. And maybe it was, me just being defiant. Maybe it was me just kind of rebuking whatever it is that they were saying to me. But I spoke more. And almost to the point where this guy has to tell me after episodes sometimes, and sometimes before them, like, hey, make sure you let other people talk. Because I still hear that voice in my head of somebody saying, you're just being too negative. You're always saying something mean. You're babbling all the time. I hear that voice, and I'm basically giving it the finger in my head, and I just talk more. And he does have to remind me, because it is, it is kind of effed up that I just babble on to ad nauseum. So I got to make room for him, and more specifically to our guests.
Reminds me of the video I posted yesterday on TikTok about pain. About negative emotions, pain being like a more baser human emotion.
Right.
it's more basic than happiness or anything else, right? And we respond to negativity. So if you go to the movie and you focus on one thing that you didn't like, that's all your mother's hearing. She's ignoring everything else because we're as humans we're like made to pick out the negative and the pain.
Yeah, it's a cognitive distortion called mental filtering.
Yeah, and I think it's probably has an evolutionary or like as human beings, it serves a purpose, right?
Yes,
it serves a purpose that to protect ourselves and to avoid pain and to survive and pass on our genes.
I'm glad you mentioned evolution, because that kind of came up in my head when I had a discussion. My mum's a very educated person, so we have deep conversations, and I wondered, is autism part of evolution, or is it just a trait that people have made up due to our societal's social issues? Because like either they've existed for thousands of years, but due to culture, maybe it's more acceptable to act the way I am, or is it part of evolution?
Like they might have just called it something different rather than like calling it autism. Or I don't know if it depends on what do you mean by evolution?
Huh?
Like when you say if you say it's part of evolution, what do you mean by evolution?
Well, like, am I like the next like human like that's evolved, or have I stopped? Like, am I like more caveman? So like, because like I said, I don't know if you've heard of this YouTuber. He's bipolar. He's David Wood, and he puts all of his energy into his religion, and that he's one of the most famous apologetic like Christians, and like before he was a Christian, he was a devout atheist, and he believed that him not having any emotions or any empathy was part of evolution. Like, he's top of the food chain, like like I can destroy this person without feeling any guilt.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it that, but I think when you think about the term neurodiversity, I think that there's just many different ways that humanity in our genes and our brains present themselves. Right. We present ourselves different ways. Yep. So that's what when I said, what do you mean by evolution? I'm just saying like there's different ways. We have different genetic variety, right? We have different neurodiversity, and some of it may be like more impairing to try not to use function language, but impairing in the sense of like the way that you navigate through the world.
Right. Go ahead and use function language. You know what? No matter how we describe autism, autism is autism. And if we use words that offend some people but don't offend other people, so be it. If we say function stuff and somebody wants to bitch about it, so be it. Here's what I know. None of us are being derogatory no matter what word we're using in that way. If we want to use function language, I know the three of us are not being derogatory. We're not putting down nobody by saying function language. We're not putting down nobody by saying level 1, 2, or 3. I mean, I don't use
level. I hate the level term. I just use function and low function. It's easy to use.
I have to use it for work. So I have a tendency of doing it more often that way. And also when we talk to other people, the level stuff is more acceptable when we talk to Americans and stuff.
I was told by somebody else that intent isn't really important.
Yeah, I don't.
I think that the intent is important.
Yes, me too.
Because if there's no malice or ill will about what you're saying,
right? Like
I don't think any of us are going to sit here and get offended because somebody said something that we don't like. But it depends on what your intention is when you say that thing.
Exactly. If you're trying to put somebody the fuck down, I have a problem with that. But if you're saying something, like if you ask a question out of your own ignorance so you can learn more about something, but you word it wrong, I think it's a good thing that you're asking the question, even if you ask it in an ignorant fucking way, because you're attempting to learn more. You're attempting to get better, right? You're attempting to grow. And I think the intent of that is a good thing. Back on to what we were talking about. I'm sorry. I just ranted the shit out of that. I went like,
you said too much coffee today.
I have. Okay. So anyway, I went left fucking field on all that shit. Where the fuck was I? I had a whole point before
we was on
the language
morals,
thing.
like the negativity aspects.
Yeah. So we were talking evolution there. So there are writers, and most of the time they're philosophers, and there are writers from hundreds of years ago that describe the world in ways that we as autists would describe it nowadays. And they talk about what they found confusing. So I don't know if autism is a new thing at all. I actually think very much so that we've always existed, but we now know that there's a difference. We can now see the difference in it. So for the people who are Aspie supremacists out there, if you're an Aspie supremacist, stop listening to our show. Just stop, please. I don't. But I don't believe that it's a next step in evolution. I believe it's always been there. Now, do I believe in evolution? Yes, I do. And I do believe people grow and people do change. And at some point we will see that. But I don't think autism is that change. I don't think autism is a next step in evolution for humans. I think we've always been there. Same thing with every mental health difference. I think they've always been there. It's just now we can see it for what it is, opposed to somebody going, that person is strange. You know what I mean?
You don't think that?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Thank you.
I can kind of agree to that. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think Nick is the next stage of humanity, personally. So.
Okay, if I'm the next stage in human evolution, we're fucked. Okay, we are fucked in every way possible.
We have to go back to being chimpanzees.
Yes,
bonobos.
Yes, I am much closer to a chimp than I am to a human. Okay,
bonobos.
Jesus. I mean, out of the three of us, I'm probably the most ignorant when it comes to a lot of things. Like my focus and grand fixation in life has always been behavior, but it's always been behavior on like a scientific or a research study basis, not like getting to know humans on a regular. So like I'm learning as we go here.
I'm 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50. Nice.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to talk about is
please.
The media aspect, because especially now with all the technology and stuff, like media is power from what we see and how you perceive it. Autism in the media, I still really, really do despise, and I'll just use that word despise so I'm not cursing.
You can curse on the show if you want.
Oh, you can curse.
It's on Spotify.
Yeah. I say fuck all the time, man.
Fucking piece of shit.
Yeah. I say I swear
we're
all the
on
time.
We're on Spotify, so you can say whatever you want.
The majority of shows and not your podcast, of course, but on podcasts, they make autistic people look like pussies and Twinkies, right?
That is a true statement.
Like such as shows as Atypical, The Good Doctor. Even though I do love The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon's a pussy.
He is.
I've never ever seen a show where like an autistic person is strong, is a person of color.
I agree to that last part absolutely. But when it comes to a strong autist, they never officially say it in the show, but I'm going to refer to the character of Bones on the TV show Bones. I'm going to refer to her as an autist every day of the week because she behaves like it. She interprets the world that way, and her friends always describe her as having social issues and not catching on to social interaction. So I'm going to refer to her that way, but she is a very strong, intelligent, powerful woman, and not even just a strong human, a strong, powerful, assertive human. And like, she's somebody to kind of aspire to in the media. So they don't ever call her autist. They don't call her Aspie or none of that jazz. But if you watch her character, if you watch the presentation of the character, it looks like possibly an autist.
So here's one that actually is both. I watched Scott Pilgrim the other day. Can you stop talking for a second?
Great movie.
So you watched Scott Pilgrim the other day, and I was looking up information about Scott Pilgrim, and according to something I read online, the creator has actually said that the character is autistic, even though it doesn't specifically say it in the movie. But if you watch, he has a lot of like weird, awkward social interactions.
You're saying Scott Pilgrim?
Yes, but I was saying that Scott Pilgrim is a pussy, but he's also strong.
Well,
because he was saying that they always portray like them as like, kind of being weak, whatever. Well, but he's kind of like this weak, not super masculine guy, but at the same time, he also beats people up and can fight. Right. So it's weird because he's kind of a weak, feeble character.
I don't know if those are real fights though, because I think it's just in his head, like like Walter Mitty daydreaming.
Probably
he's a video game nerd. Yeah. But I'm talking about like physically, like strong, like people. Like the only thing I've ever seen is the movie The Accountant, and I love that movie.
Who's in that?
Thingy, Ben Affleck, you know, the guy who played Batman and Daredevil.
Yeah, Ben Affleck. I do know what movie you're talking about now.
That is probably the best movie I've ever seen, because that was a lot like me. Like, his dad was in the military, my dad was in the military. You know, the way he stims and rocks, I used to be like that, and like, you know, because he can't finish a puzzle, like
okay,
that.
So you can relate a great deal to that.
Well, they had
there's only one movie, unfortunately, like that.
The Pixar short that we watched with Loop, the girl who's autistic. She was supposed to be like she's a higher support needs, but she's a person of color. I don't remember specifically what she was.
Yeah, she's Latina.
Yeah.
Ah, there you go. Thank you.
So there's one.
Yeah.
Loop is lovely. One. Like I said, it's like higher support function. Like all I have is the account. Like, I can look to other characters that have similar traits of autism, but not an actual character that says he's autistic. Like, one of my favorite movies that I would have to say that has autistic traits is probably Forrest Whitaker, The Way of the Samurai.
Oh my God, that is such a good movie.
You know, he's introverted, he hardly talks, but like, you know, the guy's a badass. Like, he dedicates his life to being an assassin. You know, I do martial arts. You know, I like to dress all in black in tracksuits. You know, I have my hair in cornrows. You know, just like him.
Wasn't that movie called Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai?
Yeah. No. That I know, but I didn't get my name Ghost Tiger because of Ghost.
No. I'm not saying you did, but that is such a good movie. Forrest Whitaker is an amazing actor. Oh, yeah. Real quick, so, give me 30 seconds. Fucking time me 30 seconds, okay? One thing I will say, and it might look like from the outside that there's a shit ton of characters that represent me, but I feel like you do, that I have never once seen a character that represents me, ever. Once I became bipolar, I started looking up actors and characters that were bipolar. None of them represent me. None of them are outgoing like me. None of them XYZ, right? Then once I found out I was autistic, now I'm autistic and bipolar. There ain't, and people love to point out that I look like a fucking, you know, cis white guy. I've never seen a character that's like me, because I agree with you. Every autistic male, even if they're white males, they're always cowards. They are never well-to-do. They are never functional, like holding down their shit, right? Like, even Sheldon has to have Leonard to get through his fucking day. Right? Like, give me a character that represents even me. And some people are like, oh, you're a white guy and you're all over the media. But there's not a bipolar, bisexual, autistic. And I know that gets super specific, but I've never seen me in the media. Like, every time somebody says Ben Affleck. Fuck. So I got to be done, Jamal. I promised him 30 seconds. All right.
No, I was just going to say, I think we should have a movie with an autistic black male who's like a strong character.
Absolutely.
Why not?
For 1,000 reasons, I agree. For 1,000 reasons. Not just for the autism reason. For a whole lot of reasons, I think we need that.
A character that's not feeble. I know I said the P word earlier, maybe, so I don't know if somebody's going to get upset that I said P-word? I said the character was a pussy, but I normally don't speak like that, but I was kind of going down the line of...
How dare you, you chauvinistic something or other. You know what, everybody? I think I started the show with saying that we're learning too. Me and Steve still have some shit to work out. We've got some internalized ableism and sexism and chauvinism and probably some racism or prejudice or bias to work out. Everybody got some shit to work out. We're all growing. We're all evolving. We're all fucking learning. Like, in one category or another, everybody got some ignorant shit in them, and we all got to work it out together.
Not me. I'm perfect.
Yes, you are.
No, bisexuality. Like, are you bisexual?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
You got a question. You got a question. I can see it on your face.
Community. I'm technically not homophobic, but I have caused the alphabet community a lot of, like, they typically wouldn't like a person like me due to, you know, me being religious and me not being, you know, woke and, like, not really caring, like, wanting to say what's on my mind. Like, my opinion is, like, if you want to live the life the way you want to live life and you live in a free society, that's okay. Because I remember one of my favorite teachers, bless him, Gary Sykes, he was my dance teacher and also used to teach history. If someone called him a homophobic slur, I'd be like, hey, like, leave him alone. Like, he's not anyone.
because you appreciate that human being.
If someone was ever to come up on me in that sort of way due to me being abused, I don't want to go too much into detail, but someone that was part of that community, I would get aggressive and violent. And I don't want to be seen that way due to the culture, my religion that I brought up in. So I'm okay with people doing that, but at the same time, I don't like the whole rainbow political aspects of it. You know, and
I actually kind of agree with you. I'm not super into the political side of that. I just know that, you know, when I look at a man and a woman naked, I equally get turned on by it. That's what I fucking know. As far as like political agendas when it comes to that, I don't think people in my community
but I could never ever hate someone for liking something, because I have weird kinks. I'm never ever going to speak about it online, but I have weird fantasies, and that would be hypocritical of me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't shit on anybody's preferences in that way.
And I feel sorry for a lot of the LGBTQ community who don't get a voice because it's been hijacked by...
I have to call the Alphabet Mafia real quick and put a hit out.
Wow. Jesus.
As I was saying, it's been hijacked by Gen Z, and I wish there were more characters like Modern Family, where, you know, you had a gay couple and they just happened to have a daughter and wanting to get on with the lads. Like, one was a football coach that loved to do clowning on the side hustle, and then one was a lawyer.
Yeah.
That never ever bothered me, and I grew up watching Ugly Betty, and that had a lot of LGBTQ characters and stuff.
What was that?
You know, so I was fine.
Wait, what was the show?
Ugly Betty is one of my favorite shows.
Ugly Betty, right? Okay.
But they didn't make it cringy and cheesy. Like, one was transgender, you had LGBT, like one was gay or whatever. Like, that was fine. Like, and it's pretty common in fashion and drama industry and the film industry to have people of that community.
Right.
That's like, you know, fine about that.
I actually hate it when. Excuse me. I actually hate it when sexuality is a predominant feature of any character.
Yeah.
Whether it's cis, hetero, whether it's gay, whether it's lesbian, whether it's bisexual, like, those are like me and you, if we met on the street, would not walk up to each other and just go, "Oh, hi, I'm bi, I'm hetero." No, we wouldn't do that. So why does the character make it so centerpiece, right? And yes, it's an important factor.
I would never ever wear a straight pride flag or whatever. No,
right.
So this is actually really interesting because we were just talking about representation as far as like how autistic characters are portrayed,
right?
And maybe not having enough like Black characters or people of color represented,
right?
In autism, but at the same time, we're talking about, like, I understand what you're saying, like not making it the defining characteristic about the character,
right? Because it's
but at the same time, like,
the whole piece
on some level, like, people also appreciate the representation of those things. So, but
here, let me, because I started thinking about this while I was talking about with Jamal too. Let me put this out there in this regard. If you have a Black character, you know they're a Black character almost immediately when you see them on the screen, right? So that character doesn't need to go, "Hi, I'm a Black character." Like, by no means. If you see a female, you don't by any means need to know that that's a female. You can fucking see that thing. And when it comes to other pieces, like the autism piece, you would have to mention it, but you don't have to make it like the flag they're fucking waving.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you... a character that represents me, if my character walks into a bar, I don't need to walk up to the bartender and say, "Hi, I'm autistic, bisexual. Can I get a shot of Jack Daniels?" I don't need to say that shit. I don't need to have a shirt on that says, "Look at me, I suck dick." I don't need that. But if we had a movie where there was a topic that got brought up, say I'm talking to my buddy where we're talking about dating, and I said, "You know what? I had a boyfriend at one point, and it's very similar to the girlfriend that you were dating. I had a similar issue." That's now showing me representation of being a bisexual male. But you're not waving a fucking flag. You're not asking me to, like, fucking donate money to some cause movement. Yeah. It's a character. It's a human.
Have you guys ever seen the Boondock Saints?
Yes, of course.
So it reminds me.
Both of them. Yeah.
Willem Dafoe's character is gay.
Yeah.
But they never like, "Hey, I'm a gay detective." He's just he ends up. They show you that he's gay when he's in bed with a dude.
When he gets out of when he gets out of bed and the partner that he's with, the person that he slept with, says something like, "Stay in bed," or "Don't you want to cuddle?" And he looks at him and goes, "Don't be a F word."
Yeah.
I won't say it because it's derogatory, but you guys know what I'm saying. You guys have watched the movie, right? Like, come on. Like, to me, that was a perfect scene of we're showing this piece of this character, but we're also showing that this character can be shitty on other people in that community. I actually thought that was a beautiful idea. Granted, I don't think they wrote it for that reason. But
it seemed like he was like a fuckboy, but like the gay equivalent of a fuckboy.
Right.
He's like, he's just trying to get laid.
He's trying to get laid. And literally that's what it was. William Dafoe's character was not trying to have a relationship. He was just trying to get his rocks off and go to fuck home. Yeah, what?
One night stand, we call it in the UK.
Well, yeah, so do we. I just say, fucking leave.
Although I do have him do drag later in the show, and he in the movie he's and he's supposed to be passable.
Hold on. But he wasn't doing drag because he was trying to.
No, but he's supposed to be a prostitute, and I'm like, how did any of those people think that he was a real prostitute?
Yeah, that's true too.
He makes a very ugly woman.
Yeah, very ugly woman.
Sorry, I don't know if I
no.
I
but
can say that
he was doing that because he was going undercover and he was just trying to get into the house and shit. Like there was a purpose.
I'm trying to get canceled now. I'm just gonna try.
Okay, so just start using some of the words that no one's allowed to use. I mean, go for it.
Respectful representation, like I said.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back into the aspect that I have that I still can. One thing I don't think I'll ever be able to get rid of, or I may be able to dilute it a bit, is authenticity, accuracy. Like one of the things I don't like is people lying, like especially when it comes to my religion, like blasphemy.
Yeah.
Like on TikTok, right, there are a lot of people that they call themselves Muslims, but they're not. Like they're lying. And like recently, I ended up getting a strike on one of my backup accounts because I gave this guy scripture. Because he's part of the alphabet community and he says it's not a sin. And then I said this and that. I told him to search up the scripture and he's like, no. So I wrote it down. And because the scripture's explicit, and the comment got reported and I got a strike. But it wasn't the fact that he was part of the community. It was the fact that he said it wasn't sinful. And it was blasphemy. I do not like people who lie and poison my religion because Islam it's a special thing. It's a sacred code between you and God. Like, you can't, like we have a saying, like the Prophet Muhammad said, any person who claims to be of another nation and imitates the people of that nation is one of them. He's not one of us. You understand? I would get as equally mad if it was someone who claimed to be Muslim who was promoting an alcohol brand, promoting, any other sin, pork or whatever.
Right.
Do you think that's partly because you're autistic that I noticed a common autistic thing that like we get fixated on details and facts. And so you're saying this is part of the religion. He said this is not, and you're like, well, I know it's part of the religion.
Well, I'm actually going to fall on Jamal's side on this. Is it's straight up written in?
I know,
the
but
Quran.
I'm saying because we're autistic, we feel compelled to share that. Hey, this is where it says it right here.
Yeah, I mean that might be part of it, but I'm going to say as a person who has faith as well, it's straight up written in our book. Like, well, it's straight up written in his book. You know what I mean? Like
your book as well, yeah.
Yeah. Although there's some argument in my book a little bit. Not drastically, but a little bit. Anyway, man, I got like 9 other conversations I want to have in my head about that. Anyway, hold on. I'm trying to sift through them and get back on point.
Sorry,
here.
bro.
No, you good, my man. Like, I got to deviate. Holy shit! So no, I started playing a
Van Halen song in my head.
You really
but it was
should.
Mania, Mania.
You really should. All right. So no, I think it's a part of it, absolutely, and obviously Jamal can talk for himself. I think that's part of it, but like I get a little hung up on some stuff out of the Bible when people use it or misappropriate it a great deal because like there are things where people are like, God hates X, and I was like, God doesn't hate shit. Like, God says don't do X, and there's a fucking reason why God says don't do X. It's not God hating on nothing. There is a fucking purpose behind it. Hold on.
If you're just joining us, this is the newest episode of the 700 Club.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, you motherfucker. All right, so Anyway, I got to sidetrack the shit out of this, and I'm sorry, Jamal, if I'm all over the place, but like,
no, please be yourself.
If you've ever listened
Save
to our
space with me,
700 Club, he probably doesn't know what that is, but it's like it's a religious.
Yeah,
show.
it was this stupid religious fucking thing years ago. Anyway, our conversations have tendency to go 1,000 directions, and part of it is because of me. Like, he can stay on track like a motherfucker. I can't. Anyway, so like that gentleman I told you about before, that Muslim gentleman that I knew years ago, he actually described the 3 books, the Torah, the Christian Bible, and the Quran as being 3 chapters of the same religion.
Yeah, we're the descendant. So
What?
we had the final chapter. Yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah, we believe that the Quran is the descendant, like the final chapter that has been reformed. Accurate,
yes.
Yeah.
And that's the way he described it to me. And that was one of the things that I thought was so fucking fascinating. And then another gentleman, when I was in college, talked to me a little bit about the Quran. And he actually talked about how there's so much information in the Quran about medicine and geometry and mathematics and structure building and engineering and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, holy shit, like, y'all got a blueprint for a society. And all we got was a book that vaguely said love people. Like... I'm sorry to boil it down in such a way, but like, I thought that was fascinating.
Spot on. The Quran is a scientific, mathematical book. Right. Yes,
much more. Like, there's shit about medicine, how to take care of people, and the reasons why you take care of them. And in the Bible, it's just like, hey, don't shit on things in my name. Love people, take care of people, and we're like, how do we take care of them?
Yeah.
Sorry, I shit on my own religion a little bit, but you know what? It's my religion. I can do it, I guess. I don't know. I like to poke fun at everything. But anyway, that's one thing I was going to say. But the other thing, too, is like, I do, and I'm not going to call them fake Christians because that's not my job to judge. Like, it's God's job to judge people. It's not my job to decide whether somebody's a good Christian or a bad Christian, or who deserves hell and who doesn't. That's up to God to do, and I ain't taking God's job. In fact, I would never want that job to begin with. But there's a lot of Christians who have tendency to add word to the Bible that irritates me, and they'll take half a sentence and they'll go, look, you bad. And I'm like, did you read all of it? Like, you got to read all of it. And it's not just one sentence you can extract from that whole book. It's the whole book.
Sinning's bad and good.
I'm sorry. I started to get into that voice, didn't I?
Mr. Mackey?
Yeah, I started to go into that voice.
Well, thou should not kill
it's just, and I think you kind of agree too, because you were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier too. It's, you know, I've always called myself Christian light. And one of the reasons why I say that is because there are some folks who hold their faith with such guilt and shame and weight and hate in their hearts.
I used to be like that, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I can understand. Yeah, I used to be a self-hating Muslim to a certain extent due to, propaganda with 9/11 or whatever. Like, I've always believed, but I haven't always been proud of it.
Yeah. Are there things that the Bible says don't do? Yes, there is. There's a ton of things it says don't do. In fact, it also says in the Old Testament, don't eat shellfish. But I have yet to see a Christian put down that lobster. Sorry. Sorry to poke fun at that, but fuckers. But the whole book also says that if you go to God with an open heart, you can be forgiven for your sins. You can be forgiven. And so whose place is it to decide that shit? Only God. So every time some church decides to fucking rally against some shit or protest against something,
it's what you accomplish. I've said this, I would rather be neighbors with an LGBTQ Christian than be neighbors with a heterosexual, non-religious person. Because at least they're going to have the same values that I have. And if they do adopt, that child is going to be brought up Christian. And most people are heterosexual, so it's not really going to have an issue. Because at least they're going to have the same values I have. Because I never, ever, ever tell anyone who claims to be Muslim to leave the faith. I tell them to repent.
Yeah. There you go. Seek forgiveness from God. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. We left Steve out because he's atheist.
Sorry, Steve.
It's okay. No, I was just thinking about like Westboro Baptist or something like when you were.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
All about
that's
when you're talking about Christians, just like
no,
it seems like their message is more about hate than about being Christian. It's more about hating other people.
Well, they decided to protest funerals of veterans. Like on 2 levels, I do not like that church. On 2 levels. One, somebody decided to sacrifice their life for another human being. In fact, an entire country of them. But another human being. That in itself deserves praise and honor. 2, they said it was their faith of why they were protesting.
I don't understand how you can hate people that much that you feel like the need to go out and protest or march or I know they used to do a lot of anti-LGBTQ stuff, and I don't get it. Like, how can you like occupy so much of your time, your mental energy, with just hating people? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because that's what makes them feel good. No,
I've never felt the need to hate anyone.
I don't know if it's a disease or an addiction or to get clout and PR, but
right. And I think that's kind of part of it because there was always this one woman from that church who would always be on TV trying to defend what the hell they were doing. Like, come on. Anyway, I'm sorry. I changed us like a motherfucker. And
again.
And Jamal, if you were here, I'd be fist bumping the shit out of you right now. What? Same, yeah.
You guys want to bro out about Abraham for a while? I'm fine.
Bro out about Abraham?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but the topic was basically authenticity, and my religion came up again. Yeah, but
authenticity. I agree. I think all human beings need to practice a little bit more authenticity. There's way too much bullshit lying and obfuscating that fuckers do.
I know, and there is editing nowadays. Like my favorite author, Roald Dahl, right? Who was also, an advocate for Palestine, an advocate, for people of different races and stuff. His books have now been edited in the UK, and that's very, very disrespectful. You can still get them, but you have to now Google classic Roald Dahl. And if I have children, I want the children to read any child to read the original writings, even if they were bad, because at least I can explain to them, right? Not many people know this, but the Oompa Loompas, they were black Africans. Okay, that
in the original?
Yeah. But in the movie, of course they couldn't do that because it would be seen as racist in the movie, so they make them orange. In the remake, they kind of do. They make them Indian, but they're African. They're African dwarfs.
Wait, he was Indian and he was played by Hugh Grant?
No, I'm talking about in the second one, the Johnny Depp version.
Oh, yeah. That makes way more sense now. Yep.
So I've heard this before. I don't know how true it is, but it seems like in the UK, I've seen a lot of people kind of complain about some of the censorship over there. Like they're more willing to censor things, and I know
because we don't have freedom to speak.
You can be charged with hate crimes for saying something that's offensive. People actually have done jail time for something they said on Twitter.
What? Wait, is that true?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. They have what's called hate crime laws. I have to be careful how I'm saying this, but he did the German symbol with a rainbow and other stuff on Twitter. And he did get arrested for. Unfortunately, I can't find the details out of that, but he did. The UK is slowly becoming a lot like another one of my favorite authors, Orson Orwell's 1984. It is sort of coming like that. With how you have to speak and the pronouns and the lingo.
Why can't we let people be ignorant? I mean, by the way, I'm not advocating for people to be like horribly racist and shit, but I do believe in absolute free speech, which I would
rather have someone openly racist than be sneaky about, because at least I know who my enemies are. That's my.
I would rather somebody be openly homophobic against me, opposed to me thinking they're kosher with me being bisexual.
Yeah, so they can't stab you in the back. Basically. Yeah, that's how I would say.
Yeah. I would much rather have somebody be like, I think you're an asshole for sucking dick, and I'm like, all right, well,
I think when you have you force people to go underground is when it becomes more dangerous when people aren't able to be out in the open.
Well, it also becomes more of a movement that way because you can galvanize people to that cause.
Yeah, I've heard some stuff about it, but like I don't know enough about. That's why I was asking you. I don't know enough about what's actually going on in the UK, but I've heard people talk about. There was a few other instances of people being charged with crimes for things they said online.
Really?
Oh, that's why I want to, like, once I get my finances in order, I'm moving to America, and I'm never ever coming back to. As long as my finances will always be in order and I have money, I'm never ever moving back to the UK. I love the UK of what it used to be. I grew up like it's my home, but I don't like it what it's become, and it does break my heart. You know, I love my city, but I have to move in order to live my life the way I want to.
Right. I can't imagine somebody in the U.S. because we have First Amendment protection. Like you can't. Yeah. You can say whatever the hell you want online. As long as you're not defaming somebody
you
or
First Amendment.
As long as you're not
first member, and I was like, wait, what?
as long as it's not defamation or something like that, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, like
or call to violence or something like
you described. It was a German symbol with a rainbow behind it.
I can't try to rally people to commit harm against you or to kill you. Right. Because that's a crime. But I can but I can make fun of you, or I can say something horribly ignorant online, or say something racist or anti-Semitic or whatever.
Right.
Not that I would, but I'm saying I could.
You could.
But it's just crazy to me to think that there's other like first world countries where you can't just say anything.
Yeah. It's actually quite appalling to me that like these are the countries we're calling first world, and yet they're not acting like it. Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you after we stop recording. I'll tell you another story.
Oh, please,
because I don't want to get him in trouble. But there's another story I know of somebody getting in trouble in the UK.
Yes, so. Let's stop this episode from ever airing in the UK. Not that we have any ability to do that, but I do have a question. Shit, I had a question.
Are you okay?
No, I had a fucking question. What was my goddamn question, Steve?
I know. Just so you guys know, we're approaching the 1.5 hour mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to let you know, in
that's
case
how much
you
we gave a shit.
Well, I don't know if he has anything he needs to do.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome to bow out whenever.
No. You know, I don't have work tomorrow. You know, cool. I've had my shower, so yeah, I'm straight.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe you can teach.
Nick some we knew that already. No. Bad joke.
Teach Nick some kickboxing right now.
Dude, I'm lazy, motherfucker, and I'm getting fatter by the minute. Like, there's no way somebody's teaching me kickboxing at this point in my life.
Honestly, I wish I could. That's one of the things I love. Why I want to be a coach one day. I want, help people be healthy, and
you come to the U.S. and open up a kickboxing studio.
I was just about to say, America is the fucking place to do that.
Move to Florida. My dream is to move to Florida because it, has, the values that I believe in. I don't want to say in detail online.
Understood.
But yeah.
I got this shirt. I went to Florida.
I'd probably want to live in Orlando because I'm a big Disney fan, and
I just went to Orlando in October. That's where I got this.
There you go.
It was Clearwater, which is about an hour from Orlando.
Yep. Oh, that's cool.
Hulk Hogan, and I got this Hulk Hogan shirt there.
Yeah, because he lives in Clearwater.
Yeah, Clearwater was cool. I went to Orlando. I went to Universal Studio.
Yeah. I will say, if you're going to move to the Orlando area, live just outside of Orlando. It's a little cheaper. But
I was surprised.
Close enough so there's still opportunity.
I was surprised in Orlando. I thought it would be nicer, and it's really not.
What, Orlando?
Yeah.
No,
I was in the city, and it was.
Dude,
I thought there would be there was no nice restaurants. It was all chain restaurants.
Well,
and,
it's a major.
But if you
US
go to
city.
but if you go to Boston or other big cities, they have restaurants. There was nothing it wasn't like they had. It was all tourist stuff and chain restaurants. But they didn't have I like to go to local. I asked people can I get some local cuisine around here? They're like, no. I'm closer to the. We're close to the Caribbean. Can I get some Caribbean food? Can I get some Puerto Rican food, some Dominican food?
No, fuck no. There's 3 major theme parks in fucking Orlando. No shit, it's just tourist asshole shit.
But I wanted to get some Puerto Rican food or some Dominican foods because I figured we're close to the Caribbean. I could get Cuban food.
You got to go to Miami for that.
Yeah, I wanted.
Yeah, I know you gotta go to Miami.
Yeah, you go to Miami.
I wanted some mofongo or something.
It won't bother me because I used to be a chef, so I can just cook for myself.
Yeah, you can. You can cook whatever you want. This guy and this guy, we got to go somewhere and have somebody do it for us.
Cook.
Oh no, you.
I've made mofongo.
Somewhere.
I've made mofongo.
Yeah. You know what? If I want a corn dog, I got to go somewhere else because I can't fucking make them. Okay, I barely make hot dogs. I throw those fuckers in the microwave and heat them up. Okay, I don't cook much of anything.
I can understand.
Yeah, my wife does a lot of that.
Well,
I mean, I
God
cook
bless
some.
your wife.
What? Oh yeah, absolutely. God bless my wife. She puts up with me on a regular basis.
Another thing I wanted to talk about relationships. I've said this on your live, but may God forgive me. But at the time, I had a girlfriend, and it was my way of comfort. And one of the reasons why she dumped me is when I told her I was autistic, because she eventually was going to find out, because I was decorating my place with a balloon garland. I had no reason. I just said I like to do that, and it was like, right, well, I get it. You're doing it for Christmas, but why are you doing it now? It's weird. And I said, look, okay. I'm on the spectrum, and when I like doing something, it goes to 100.
Yeah.
And this is before I was training full time. Like, I was just doing karate as a hobby, and it's like, look, when I'm chill at home, I like to do this. I like to decorate and put this in detail.
Right.
And she basically said, right, well, I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't want to say it in detail because there was a lot of cussing and arguing. And
you know what? Most women would probably appreciate
hereditary.
some decorations.
Whatever. I don't know what you have. She basically said, autism is hereditary. If we ever had kids, they could have it, and I don't want to be with you anymore.
Wow.
Wow. It was at her place, and I just left, and I'm like, okay, I made sure I had my stuff, and I just left off and just pretended like I didn't hear anything. And I was basically that's life. And how I deal with things, is I have certain music tracks in my head, like lo-fi hit. But you ever heard the song like Warren G, Regulators?
Yeah.
When I feel like I'm crying, I bop my head to that song, and I put my hood up and Regulators, mama. It was a clear, but that's life. Life's hard and cold. You don't deserve to cry. Just off my head.
You just got to keep going.
So I've never dealt with anything like you have as far as the way you were treated by your ex, but in my experience hasn't been being rejected in that horrible of a way, but it was more so having expectations put upon me and treating me as though my autism didn't matter. It was just shitting on everything that I did, and not willing to accept that I had certain reasons for doing things, or that basically dismissing or ignoring all of the autism stuff. Oh, you can not do that if you want to, or just kind of, dismissing it. So, but I'm lucky enough that I haven't had that experience that you had. It sounds horrible, but I have been treated like shit by women in the past, but just not specifically called out and say, well, I don't want to
have children with you because you have a thing.
That type of thing. But I have had women treat me like crap.
You have. Oh, wow. That sounded,
Thank you.
Wow, that was really dismissive of me.
You have.
You know what? We've been friends.
Yeah, but I'm glad you have a wife. I'm very, very happy when I see people who have autism in a full-time relationship, especially with the men, because it's very rare.
Me and her have been together for about 7 years now. I actually only moved to Massachusetts and ended up meeting this guy and doing this podcast because I met her. It was actually because a buddy of mine moved from Connecticut to Massachusetts. I came out to visit him, and I met her. And so then I moved out here to be with her, and we've been together for a while. Yeah. And I do have an ex-wife, and our marriage did not go well at all, horribly well at all, because both of us didn't know that we were neurodiverse. Neither one of us knew what was going on with us. Yeah. Neither one of us knew at all. And there wasn't even a thought process of being autistic or being bipolar or ADHD. In her case, there was no thought of any of that. We were just really shitty to each other. And maybe I was shittier than she was. Probably I was shittier than her because she's a very nice person. But there was a little back and forth of not being kosher with each other because we didn't know how to treat one another. We didn't know a good way to treat each other. We have two beautiful children, and our children are much better people than we are, than we've ever been. And that's a beautiful thing. But yeah, so I
think it's probably like this in the UK as well, but there's a lot of shitty social expectations that people have.
There is.
And if you don't fit into those boxes,
money.
It mostly to do with money.
In the UK, they act like they're all this level, but in the UK, the average, if you want a good looking wife, like you have to pay money. Like that was another thing that kind of wound me up. Like the amount of money I spent on dates or with I don't personally hate her, but it's the way of expectation. You know, like she wants to go out. I'm paying for everything. I'm paying for this. Like they will say that they don't want to pay, but you have to pay.
Well, how old are you? Because
I'm 25. This was back when I was I'm 25. I don't look my age. I'm a late bloomer in puberty, but I wasn't at the time.
The reason I ask is because I think I had a similar experience in my 20s, but I think, and this probably just is not really helpful to you right now, but I think as you get a little older, the older you get, it'll be a little bit easier. When I dated in my 20s, it sucked because I ran into a lot of the same problems. I would go out, meet girls or go out on a date with them. Mm-hmm. I ended up wasting a ton of money on shitty dates. And a lot of the women seemed like not to be very interested in getting to know who I was. It was like they had this mental checklist and they were checking off boxes like, do you have this? Do you have that? Like, how much money do you make? All this stuff. I'm like, why do you, like, I just met you. Why do I have to check off all these fucking invisible checklists?
Because that's what the fuck they have for criteria.
But I think a lot of women in their 20s maybe are looking for certain things because they feel like they need to check all these boxes to find a partner. But I think as people get older, you tend to, not everybody, but a lot of women and men too, start to just, they care more about like the connection and how they get along with the person.
Substance. Yeah.
Like, do we get along with each other? Could we have a good relationship together and not care as much about the materialistic or the superficial?
Right. And there is
things.
more of that. But if you put in context, people in their 20s, and I can't speak for people in the UK, so I only speak for the United States in this regard. People in their 20s, they're just getting out of mom and dad's house. They're just coming into their own. So material things, owning things is an important thing. Having their own money, paying for their own stuff is a very important priority. So when they engage with partners or potential partners, that is a fixation on them. And as you get older, you look for more substance because you're more secure in your own ability to do so. So you're no longer looking for how well are they doing. You're like, but who is this person and how do they fit into my life? I think that, that might be the non-cynical way of viewing it, but I agree. In my 20s, I came across a lot of people that I tried to date who were more fixated on a lot of that exterior stuff more so than the internal stuff.
Can you make a good sugar daddy?
But I think men also have a checklist when they're looking at things, but I think men's checklist is long before you get to that first date. It's more about how she look. I think our criteria is more visually, and her criteria is more.
I know, and I'm honest with it. Like for me, when I'm looking on a date, it's 70% looks and 30% personality. Like I don't like.
And you're also in your 20s, so that makes sense.
I don't like people who have short hair. I don't like people unless I know them and got to know them. I would not want to be with someone who's a vegan. Or who doesn't have any spirituality in their life, and who doesn't value.
Nobody wants to be with a vegan.
Nobody wants to be with a vegan.
Or anyone who is short. Like I'm 6'4". Like if I date someone that's short, it's like I'm dating a child. It's too awkward for me.
Right. Like what is the height range for you?
This is going to be like a lot of women find this quite awkward, but I can't date anyone who's under 5'6". I can't. Like she has to be at least 5'6".
It makes sense. It makes sense based on the height of you. That makes sense.
I do think it's weird when you see a guy who's like 6'4" and he's with like a woman who's like 5 feet tall.
Yeah, it is weird.
It is weird.
And I'm not gonna lie. I think that's fucking weird. Is because you see this, right? There's this drastic difference between them, and all I keep thinking in my head is like, how does that fucking work when they're naked? But anyway, that's my thought process. What the fuck do I know? But there's a lot of that. By the way, women also have physical criterias, by the way. Like, I love how people love to say that women don't care about that shit. Yes, they fucking do. All human beings have physical criteria of what they're looking for. Is it as important? Not necessarily, but everybody looking for it. Come on. I know. I had a female friend years ago who was 6'1", and she said she can't date a man who is her height. And I said, so he's got to be taller? And she was like, no. He's got to be shorter. And I was like, why? Yeah. She wanted shorter men. And like we went on one date together, but we were very clearly not compatible in such a way. But anyway, so like she only wanted men that she could cuddle with, as in like wrap her arms around and just like that kind of position.
That's very rare. I've never ever heard of a woman that wants to be bigger and stronger than.
Well, she was also a basketball player, and she was really athletic and sporty and stuff like that. Yeah. So she, I guess, took on some of those masculine-based roles.
She wanted to be like, she wanted to like wear the pants, I'm guessing,
Essentially, yeah. But she wanted a guy who was more emotional, who was more kind and caring. So she was looking for more quote unquote effeminate traits. But she did end up meeting somebody, and it was like 6 years of a relationship. They broke up.
I'm glad that you mentioned effeminate stuff. That's another thing that's coming into my head. My mind, it's the categories. Let me just see if I can switch the camera. You might not be able to see it due to the lighting. Like, I need to get my bedroom light fixed. Hang on a second. I can't switch the camera, but I can try and show you this, right? Okay. I have Disney memorabilia, Disney princesses, and like a Ken doll, because I watched the Barbie movie and I found it hilarious, kind of as a parody, right?
So did I.
So I have the feminine, childish stuff, but right next to it, I have these medals, and these are all my fights that I've had, like 3 Muay Thai matches, like, or won by knockout. So like, I have a masculine side, but I have an effeminate side, and I kind of balance that out.
Yeah.
So when I'm in a relationship, like, I want to be cuddled, I want to be loved. But I realize, as a man, you have to be strong. So I kind of balance that out, and that's why I love what I am. I'm so obsessed with me being a martial artist. So when people call me a wimp, like when I'm emotional, I don't like to insult people. I'm like, don't speak to me like that. You don't know how to fight.
That's right.
You're hiding behind the screen. And I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 6'4" and you're saying this to me. You won't say it to me in my face.
Right. And you use your physicality to defend yourself against it. I use my words. I love ripping people apart with my words. Like, you use your body to defend yourself and all that, and to combat that. I use my words for it, mostly because I can't fight worth shit. Like, you two fought in high school. I didn't show up to high school long enough to fucking fight anybody.
I didn't pick fights.
I had no choice.
I know you didn't pick fights. You defended people. I'm betting Jamal defended people. I had
no choice. Like, I was, one of the only Muslims and only black people, so I had to fight every day. Right. It was either that or get picked on every day.
I had friends who were like you in some ways. In other words, I went to a school that was mostly white, and we had some minority students, and they would get picked on. And whether they were gay, if they were, we had this kid who was Puerto Rican.
Yeah, people got picked on.
But because it was mostly white kids in the school, they would bully these kids, and then I used to get into fights because I would defend them.
Right.
Not that I'm saying they needed me to, but in some cases, some of them never defended themselves, and I felt compelled to stick up for them. Maybe that was shame on my part, but I felt compelled to do something about it because I didn't like seeing people get bullied.
Right. You didn't like people getting shit on. I don't. Nobody likes watching. Well, actually,
by the way, I'm not a very big. I'm not a very big guy. I'm small, but when we were at school, we were all small because it was school. So
yeah. I mean, he is kind of short. Not drastically though.
I never got my ass kicked though.
Oh yeah.
I was pretty fast.
Oh, I got my ass kicked a couple times. Again, I'm not a very good fighter.
I was very athletic when I was younger, and I was
fighter.
Fast.
I understand that.
Yeah, I'm not like, I don't know.
Well, that's one thing I recently, I've gotten rid of it now, but like, I think like 2 months ago, like I was like, how can you be comfortable like being in a relationship with like somebody, like if you can't like look after your wife, like defend her? Because I was still a bit arrogant back then. I'm not as now. I'm a lot more kinder, and I was like, but I could take your wife from you, and there was nothing you could do about it. This is the issue I had with people who said, well, I'm using my words, and I said, yeah, but if I say 2 + 2 is 8, and you say no, it's 4, I could say you calling me a liar, and if you say yes, I could. And I'm like, oh, what happened? Oh, some guy called me a liar.
And then after you hit me, I'm going to call you a liar again, and you're going to hit me, and I'm going to call you a liar again, and then you're going to hit me, and I'll keep going until you get tired.
I can understand, because words are just as powerful, because you're living rent-free in my head.
That's right. I'm in control in that situation. You might be able to hit me 100 times, but you're going to get tired at some point. But I'm still going to be in your head saying it to you, even long after you break my jaw.
Well, if you can, after you're missing a few teeth.
Well, I mean, like, even if somebody broke my jaw, and I had somebody threaten that I'll make it so you can never speak again. Yeah, but you're still going to remember I said it. And it's still going to be saying in your head. And one day you're going to go, what the fuck? That dude was right. And when that day happens, you're going to regret breaking my jaw.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see me and you're going to go, you know what? You were right. 2 + 2 is 4. And I'm going to be like, no shit. I told you like 8 years ago. Hey, thanks for the ability to fucking drink through a straw, but I'm glad you learned something out of it. By the way, I'm really happy that I've only gotten hit a couple of times and still said shit. And then the person was like, you're never going to stop, are you? And I'm like, you're fucking right, I won't.
Yeah, man.
I'm a stubborn motherfucker, by the way.
I know, Wes, I was about to say the exact word. Like, autistic people were stubborn based on principle.
Yeah, just based on principle. We're stubborn as fuck.
And I always take it as a compliment. I know I shouldn't, but I do.
I take it as a compliment, too. Because I'm stubborn enough to argue with a cop when they're fucking wrong. I'm stubborn enough to argue with a professor when they're fucking wrong. I will argue with anybody, especially when I'm defending somebody and I know I'm goddamn right. I will always. Now, granted, do I get pissy enough to raise my fist in anger? Nope. Mostly because I'm going to throw that punch and somebody's going to beat my ass because of it. But I will always use my mouth.
How do you know you're right?
I'm pretty sure when the cop is looking at my buddy who's black and is asking them all the questions and not looking at me once in the interaction, I'm pretty sure that motherfucker is racist.
Well, I wasn't asking for a specific example. I'm just saying you said especially if you know you're right, but I'm like, how do you always know you're right in that given scenario?
I don't always know I'm right. Sometimes it's a matter of I hold the belief so strongly that I believe the other person is wrong in that. And could I be fucking wrong? Yes, I could. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge as of right now, every time I have stood up to somebody verbally, I have been in the right when I've done it. Granted, I also disregard the entire period of time in my life where I was undiagnosed bipolar, and I could have been a horrible asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking know. I don't know. I could have been a horrible, horrible asshole. Actually, I know I was a horrible, horrible asshole at one point in my life, and I would I was a mean son of a bitch at that time, but I also had a lot of self-hate. I had a lot of fucking shit to work out. Not an excuse, an explanation. I should probably apologize to some of those people, but then again, I don't know who they are anymore. So, yeah, I'm a different human being than I was then. Wow, way to make me, wow. All right.
Not all pee-pee times or poo-poo times.
I know everyone has the right of ability, to change and on. Yeah. That's one things I've learned.
Yeah. I mean, we all have the ability to grow, and it's a beautiful thing when we ourselves allow ourselves to do so. It's a beautiful thing. So on that note, I think it is about that time. Because I don't want to take too much time from you, as well as we probably got to wrap up just in general, because nobody wants to listen to a podcast that's 2.5 hours long. Even though we've done episodes that are 2.5 hours fucking long. Anyway, let me do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into On the Spectrum podcast. This is Jamal. Again, his name on TikTok is Ghost Tiger. Please check him out as much as you can. Show some love, show some support, show some likes. Maybe put a comment in. Intelligent human being who sounds like he loves to talk. So, give him an opportunity to do so. Me and Steve, thank you very much for tuning into our episode. And if you got this far into the episode, almost 2 hours now? Bravo for you. That's a marathon fucking episode. Great on you. But if you like, dislike, or agree or disagree with anything you heard us say, please leave a comment. Let us know. Give us some feedback about the episode. And if you'd like to tell us about other things to talk about, please do. Steve, anything?
Yeah, I want to forego and give my time to Jamal, see if there's anything he wants to say.
Great, Jamal.
Give you the last word.
What would you say is your favorite trait about being autistic in America?
I think it's pretty awesome that I get disregarded all the time. That's pretty awesome.
You sarcastic motherfucker.
I don't understand sarcasm, by the way.
An honest answer, I guess, would be I have been able to utilize some of the skills and talents based on interest that I've had. I kind of get obsessed with things like you do, and I've been able to use some of that to improve my life or to even make money at times.
Sweet.
Oh, is that my cue? I can talk now? Okay.
No.
So, what is one of my favorite autistic traits? You were asking both of us, right?
Yeah. What's your favorite autistic trait?
You said I can talk
about being like, and I'm directly being, as an American living in America.
I think one of my favorite autistic traits is actually the overwhelming amount of empathy that I have. I think it's part of being autistic. I love that I can hear somebody else's story. I can hear somebody else talk about how they've been treated in their life, the things that have happened to them in their life. And on some level, maybe not 100%, but on some level, I'm able to understand the emotionality to that situation, and I can connect with that other human being. And I know that's also, all human beings have that ability, but I think as an autist, and I don't know if that's 100% an autistic thing or not, but I think as an autist, I feel it far more. I feel like I can connect far more because I can understand another human being far easier that way. Mm-hmm. That's my answer.
Beautiful. Thank you.
But by the way, Jamal, because you said you don't get autism all that much.
Sarcasm.
So what did I say?
Autism.
Oh, sarcasm. I meant sarcasm.
He doesn't understand autism.
Yeah.
My bad. So one thing I will say, and I learned it very early on in my life, but one thing I always kind of do, especially when I meet new people, so I don't necessarily know their sarcasm or where their jokes sit, I pay attention to just their mouth. So I don't listen to their words all that much. I pay attention to their mouth. And if they smile, I'm like, oh, okay, that's clearly a joke. Ha ha. You probably already know that. But
I just tell people I don't understand sarcasm.
There
I used to have trouble with sarcasm quite a bit, but I've learned to when I was especially when I was younger, I used to take everybody literally all the time, even if they were joking or being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I understand sarcasm much better now, but I struggled with it for a long time.
I used to watch a lot of comedians, and because I didn't understand some of the fucking jokes that kids in classes fucking said, so I watched a shit ton of comedians.
Oh yeah, comedy does help.
Yeah. I watched just a shit ton. Like, I still love sitcoms and shit.
Have you ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Fuck yeah. Larry David is one of my heroes.
I'm Larry David.
Yeah. I love Larry David. Oh my God. Anyway, so we were trying to wrap up the episode. Steve's giving me that face of, hey, fucker, wrap this shit up. So, Jamal, thank you very much. I would love to have you on another time. Check out his channel. Check out our channel. And I'll shut up.
Date, bro. Yeah, just send me the date, and then email me. You know the drill, innit?
All right.
Just take care, and enjoy your freedoms.
Thank you.
Special thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Thank you, Ray Hansen.